So you started a reef tank, got it cycled, got it all stable, and now it's time to add corals. You go to the store, pick up your corals, put them in the tank, and then they start to close up and suffer. And you thought to yourself, I did it all right? Well, there's three main things that I check before I add corals to any reef tank. Make sure they're in line, and then you add the corals and they are happy. The first thing, and this is the main port of call for most reefers when they think about corals, is the mineral levels. So your calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Make sure they're within these ranges. Your calcium, you want between 380 and 450. Know it's a wide range. I generally like it smack bang in the middle. Your alkalinity, you want between 8 and 12. Now, those ranges are depending on which corals you keep, and you can easily Google which corals you're wanting to keep and which point at that scale they like. Again, I like to go straight down the middle and like my alkalinity at roughly 10. Most of the time it's a bit below 10, to be honest with you. The last level is magnesium. I like to keep it on the higher side of this scale. Why? I just feel like my reef is more stable when the magnesium's on the higher side of the scale. But between 1250 and 1350 parts per million is exactly where you want it to sit. Get those three levels in check, which means you'll need a reef testing kit that tests calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Once they're all set and sorted and stable, add your corals. Moving on to the second thing that you want to make sure is stable, your heat and the salinity in your tank. These are overlooked all the time, and if not taken seriously, they'll do way more damage than any calcium, alkalinity, or magnesium being out. Not so much that they are high or low, but the fluctuations in heat and salinity is what will cause damage to your corals and fish and overall instability in your reef. So what I like to do is get a thermometer that will track the lowest recorded temperature and the highest recorded temperature. Otherwise, you're welcome to set an alarm for like midnight and then wake up, go and check your reef tank and make sure that the level is, 25 degrees and stable, because it's the coldest point that you want to check and the hottest point in the day that you want to check. And if they do go too hot or too cold and there's large swings, you're going to have issues, and it's fundamental issues. They need to be solved before you put any form of life in that tank, no matter what. I'm not saying that things won't live in there with fluctuations. They just won't thrive and grow and live their best life. Now, the third thing that I like to check, and this is the final thing before I sort of just throw everything in there, is the lighting and the flow. These two things are really important for corals, and they're often overlooked, especially if you're just starting out. Now, for my lighting, I sort of skipped all of the guesswork and I went for the Illumagic X4s. They have heaps of output, and on the DALUA ecosystem app, you can actually go in and steal the lighting schedules of the highest quality reefers on the planet right now. And that's all I did. I just went in and stole a really good reefer's lighting schedule, applied it to my tank, and my corals are doing awesome. So that's my strategy. And if you're not going for a light that by DALUA or has an app like that, the other thing you can do is just measure the lighting levels. If you've spent lots on your light, there's a good chance it's got a high amount of output. If you've gone and bought a budget light, just double check that it is putting out enough light to make sure your corals are healthy. Otherwise, you can always choose corals that thrive in lower light environments. There's plenty that do that. I'm about to make a video on corals that thrive in lower light. The second part of this is flow. If all other parts of your tank are in order, the heat's all good, the calcium, alkalinity, magnesium levels are all good, everything seems fine, but your corals just aren't thriving and happy, the next port of call is the flow. If you don't have enough flow in your tank, it's usually pretty obvious. Your corals aren't moving around, especially if you've got things like torches or hammer corals. Anything euphyllia will be flowing if there's enough flow. So there's two ends of this spectrum. If there's too little flow, you can generally tell, and there'll be lots of dead spots in the tank. And the reason why dead spots are not good in a reef tank is because lots of detritus generally builds up in dead spots and isn't cycled into the filter in any way. It doesn't go into your overflow or anything like that. It will just stay there. And if it stays there and there's a large chunk of something there, that can create ammonia spikes in your tank. Do not want that in a reef tank. Now, even if you've got a tank that's got crazy good flow, there still can be dead spots in and around your scaping. So make sure you check the whole floor of your tank for any buildup in detritus. That's probably the biggest tell that there's no flow in that area. If you haven't added corals to your tank, it's a little bit harder to tell where the dead spots are and if your corals are going to like that spot or not, but you can always trial where to put your coral. When you put your coral in the tank, see if it likes it, and if it doesn't, move it to a higher flow spot or a lower flow spot. It's tweaking and tailoring, and the good thing about corals is generally you buy them on frag plugs and you can trial this spot, this spot, this spot, that spot in your tank until you find one that really it's doing well in. Then you can take it off the frag plug, glue it to your scape, and it looks awesome. The other side of that equation is high flow. If the flow is too high, it's generally really obvious. Your corals will almost always be retracted because they don't want to get damaged because of the flow. That being said, there has been times where the corals like torches are not retracted and you can just see them getting absolutely battered by wave makers and the like. So all we're trying to do here is avoid the extreme dead spot and high flow spot. The other thing you can do to sort of solve this problem, and it's really good at dispersing flow and reducing dead spots, is you can get extensions that you put on the return of your tank. And what it does is it creates this little vortex inside of it, and it sends the flow in totally random directions all over your tank. And the moment I put one of those on this tank, I found almost no dead spots whatsoever, and the flow where it would be just beating into my scape or my corals is totally dispersed. So it was a really, really good addition to this tank. Once those three things are totally in check, your mineral levels, the heating and lighting, and the flow in your tank are totally sweet, go ahead, waste your money, buy a bunch of corals, do what you came to this hobby to do, build your tank, add them in, and make sure that you're constantly testing, constantly dosing, doing all the things necessary to keep this ecosystem happy. Happy reefing, guys. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button for more videos just like this one.